What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Fix It Garage. We're back on the EJ22 rebuild. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with this project, this is an EJ22 I bought from a junkyard, and we are rebuilding it for a secret project. We are actually in the phase of reassembly. We've got the cylinder heads all bolted up, and those are done. The heads are on and done, so we still have to put the front together. We've got to put the oil pan on and seal up the back side of the engine. Tonight, we're gonna start with sealing some things up. The oil pump, the rear baffle, and the oil pan. Those things all require a liquid gasket, so I'd like to do it all at the same time. Since I've got one container of liquid gasket, it just makes the most sense to do it all at once. I think we'll also try and get the water pump and a few other pieces on, so basically the timing belt is ready to go on. We'll see how far we get in today's episode. So let's get started on this thing right away. First up, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put the oil pump on. So the oil pump uses liquid gasket around here, and it also uses a rubber O-ring that goes in here. So we need to put a new O-ring on our new oil pump, put liquid gasket on, and we can go ahead and install it. It's held in by a bunch of 10mm bolts. So let's go ahead and break out the new oil pump. We'll put some liquid gasket on it, and then we'll stick it on here. Before we put on the liquid gasket, I'm gonna show you guys what we're doing. Here's the new O-ring for the oil pump. It is actually gonna go right in here, just like that. So that should stay put. Here is our brand new Subaru OEM oil pump. Now we're using a new one because if you guys remember, this surface here on the old one was damaged from the keyway being damaged. Now that we've repaired all of that, we are gonna go ahead and we're gonna replace the oil pump with a new one so we know that it's not gonna leak and that this is gonna work how it's supposed to. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get the liquid gasket put on. Some people will put it on the pump. Other people, like me, sometimes I'll put it on the actual surface that I want to seal against, so I'll put it on the block and then I'll put this on. That makes it so when I go to install it, I don't have to worry about bumping this into something. So if I like bump it here or here, I don't get liquid gasket where I don't want it. It's where I need it, and then I can push it on there, and when I tighten it up, it'll squish down the gasket and it'll make a nice seal. The gasket maker that we're gonna be using is Honda Ultra Flange. I work at a Honda dealer, so I can buy this stuff for relatively inexpensive. You can also get different things from like AutoZone, CarQuest, or any other auto parts store. You just have to make sure that you get a liquid gasket maker that will suit your needs. For this engine, this is gonna be perfect. I don't need like anything different than this. This will work just fine. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna use this to seal on the oil pump, the oil pan, and the breather plate on the back, and anything else that requires a liquid gasket. Alright guys, oil pump is on. As you guys saw, we put the liquid gasket all the way around. So where that O-ring was, you saw I put Honda Bond all the way around it. The O-ring does a good job of sealing. The problem is over time, oil will actually get through that rubber O-ring. Rubber and oil don't mix very well. They eventually the rubber will get really hard, almost like plastic. So by putting that little extra ring around it, that's an extra layer of protection. So if the O-ring fails, oil's not gonna go squirting out and leaking here or leaking, and you're not gonna lose oil pressure. So that's gonna help maintain oil pressure. Obviously, if that rubber O-ring fails, this will need to come back off and that'll need to be replaced. But that's just like an extra little layer of protection that I like to do when I have the opportunity, just so I don't have to go back in here as soon. This being a Subaru engine, things are going to leak again someday. Hopefully, not anytime soon though for the person that's getting this engine. Now that that is on, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna flip the engine upside down and we're gonna work on getting the oil pan on. So the first step to resealing the oil pan is we need to install our oil pickup and our oil windage tray. So in this case, here's our pickup. This is actually not the original one. This is a slightly different one off of a different Subaru. The oil pan, if you guys remember in the first episode, is very dented in. So we have a different oil pan and a different oil pickup. The pan is actually a little bit deeper, which will work for right now. Eventually, we're gonna be putting a much shorter, wider pan on, but more on that later. And then here, we have the stock Subaru windage tray. Now, an oil baffle would work a lot better for keeping oil in the bottom of the crankcase, an oil baffle would work better for keeping oil out of the crankcase and in the oil pan, but for this, right now, we're just going to use the stock windage tray. Again, these parts might be changing later down the road once we get this engine up and running. So first things first, we're gonna put on our windage tray, and then we will put on the pickup. The pickup will get a new O-ring, so it seals, so it'll be able to actually take vacuum and pull oil into the engine. So let's go ahead and get these parts installed. Windage tray and pickup are now installed. It's all just a bunch of 10mm bolts and a new O-ring on this side of the pickup. So now's where we would install the oil pan, but I forgot that I haven't actually cleaned the pan yet, and it's really messy. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do that in a future episode. But to keep things going, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start reassembling stuff on the front of the engine so we can put the timing belt on next time. So that's a minor setback, but we can go ahead and we can start putting all of this stuff together. I don't know exactly what parts we're gonna get on in this video, but I can tell you that the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna get the water pump, the new bracket on, and some of these plastic covers on so we can put the timing belt on next time. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start with the new bracket and water pump that are gonna go here, and then we'll continue putting other stuff on after that. So let's grab our brand new water pump, our brand new bracket, and let's start putting these things on. Up first, guys, we're gonna put on our water pump. So here is our brand new Subaru water pump, which I've shown you guys. We've got a brand new gasket for it. It's actually a metal gasket that'll go around here instead of a liquid gasket, and 6 10mm bolts. We're gonna go ahead and we're going to install this new water pump right now. water pump's installed. So now let's go ahead and we'll install this upper bracket that's gonna go here for our new timing belt tensioner. I had to modify some bolts that were longer to shorten them so I can put 2 new 12mm bolts up here. That was one of the differences between this bracket and the old bracket. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna install the bracket now, and then these 2 pieces will be done. Both of those brackets are installed. I think the next thing that we can put on is we can probably put on the plastic cover that's gonna be over here that goes behind the cam gear, which will also help put a timing mark here from when we have to go and time this engine. So let's go ahead and let's throw that plastic cover on right now. So we got the new plastic cover on, guys, and I found out right before I went to go put it on that there's these like metal rings in here, these guys. And that helps line this thing up so it's straight, because right here is our timing mark from when we go to time the engine. Well, the new cover didn't come with them. Luckily, I kept all the old parts, so I was able to take those off of the old one, kind of sort of install them in and then bolt it on. That 10mm bolt does not look great, but it does grab and tighten down. So we're good with that. It's just a plastic cover at the end of the day, so it's not really that important. This is actually one of the old covers. This is for the other side. It's one of the covers that I did not buy. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put this cover on as well, and we're gonna make this one work for what we need to put this engine back together. So now we have this plastic cover on, which also has our timing mark for timing this engine. So now, in theory, we have everything that we need on here to time the engine other than the crank gear, which we'll put back on when we actually go to time it. Right now, obviously, we still need a crank seal, so we'll have to put that in next time. But at least now we're a lot closer to timing this engine. But I think that is where we're gonna stop for today. We're at a very good stopping point. Well, that's gonna do it for today, guys. We made a bunch of progress on this motor tonight. Didn't get quite as far as I wanted to, but we ran into a few hiccups. But hopefully these little hiccups now will make it easier later on. So next time, I'm hoping to have all the timing belt stuff done and the oil pan on. And actually that will almost complete this engine because we don't have an exhaust manifold to put on, and I'm not gonna put the intake on yet, because I need to figure out which intake I'm gonna use and which injectors I'm gonna use, and a few other details need to be worked out before an intake goes on. So this thing's getting really close. So once again, thank you guys all for watching, and remember that on any project you're working on, you should never stop wrenching.